Hello, my dear English learners, and welcome to Miss Nyung. I'm Nyung, and today I want to help you do something more important than memorizing advanced words. I want to help you become the person you are in English. That may sound unusual, so let me explain. Perhaps you can understand a podcast, read an article, and follow most conversations. Your English is no longer basic. Yet, when it is your turn to speak, your ideas become smaller. In your first language, you can be thoughtful, funny, persuasive, warm, or precise. In English, you may suddenly sound uncertain. You know what you want to say, but the right sentence does not arrive quickly enough. You use simple words for complex feelings. You agree because disagreeing feels difficult. Or you stay silent, even though you have something valuable to contribute. If that describes you, this lesson is for you. This is a long, guided English immersion session for learners moving toward C1 and C2. We will not chase difficult vocabulary simply to sound impressive. We will learn how to express real ideas with clarity, depth, and confidence. We will talk about work, decisions, relationships, pressure, change, technology, identity, and personal growth. More importantly, you will practice the language needed to handle those situations in real life. Throughout the lesson, I will invite you to answer questions, repeat useful phrases, complete thoughts, and respond to realistic scenarios. Please participate. You can speak out loud, whisper, or answer silently if you are in a public place. The more actively you respond, the more this lesson becomes yours. Do not worry about making perfect sentences. Advanced fluency does not mean never making mistakes. It means that you can keep communicating, clarify your meaning, and express yourself even when a sentence is not perfect. Before we begin, choose one personal goal for this session. Maybe you want to speak with less hesitation. Maybe you want to explain your opinions more clearly. Maybe you want to sound warmer in conversations. Maybe you want to stop translating every thought. Complete this sentence in your mind. By the end of this lesson, I want to feel more confident when I finish the sentence for yourself. Good. If you enjoy meaningful English lessons built around real communication, subscribe to Miss Nyong. Here, we do not study English only to pass a test. We learn it so that we can use it in the moments that matter. Take a slow breath, make yourself comfortable, and let's begin. The first idea I want to challenge is the belief that advanced English means complicated English. It does not. Imagine two people explaining the same problem at work. The first person uses long words but speaks without structure. The listener has to work hard to understand the point. The second person uses mostly familiar words, but the message is organized, specific, and easy to follow. Who sounds more advanced? The second person. Advanced communication is not measured by the number of impressive words you know. It is measured by the amount of meaning you can communicate clearly. Let's compare two answers to the question, why do you want to improve your English? The first answer is, because English is important and I want a better future. That answer is correct. But it is general. Now listen to a more developed answer. I want to improve my English because it would give me access to opportunities that currently feel out of reach. I can already understand quite a lot, but I still hesitate when I need to explain my ideas in professional situations. My goal is not to sound perfect. I want to communicate clearly enough that people focus on my ideas rather than my mistakes. Notice what makes the second answer strong. It gives a reason. It describes the current difficulty. It explains the desired future. And it includes a personal standard of success. You can use this four-part pattern for many topics. What matters to me, why it matters, what is difficult now, what I hope will change. Let's use the pattern together. The topic is confidence. What matters to me? Being able to speak honestly matters to me. Why? Because I want people to understand what I really think. What is difficult now, sometimes I simplify my ideas because I am afraid of making mistakes. What do I hope will change? I hope to become comfortable expressing more detailed opinions. Now listen to the complete answer. Being able to speak honestly matters to me because I want people to understand what I really think. At the moment, I sometimes simplify my ideas because I am afraid of making mistakes. Over time, I hope to become more comfortable expressing detailed opinions even when the topic is challenging. Repeat the final sentence after me. Over time, I hope to become more comfortable expressing detailed opinions even when the topic is challenging. Excellent. Now create your own short answer. Use the topic you chose at the beginning of the lesson. What matters to you? Why does it matter? What is difficult now? What do you hope will change? Take a moment and speak. Even if your answer was not smooth, you did something valuable. You turned an internal idea into organized English. That is the work of an advanced learner. Now let's talk about an ability that makes almost every answer sound more mature, showing nuance. Nuance means recognizing that a situation is not completely simple. An intermediate answer may divide the world into good or bad, right or wrong, helpful or harmful. An advanced answer can hold two truths at the same time. For example, consider this question: has technology improved communication? A simple answer might be, yes. Technology makes communication easier. That is true, but incomplete. A nuanced answer could be, technology has made communication faster and more convenient, especially for people who live far apart. At the same time, convenience does not always create closeness. We may exchange more messages than before while having fewer conversations that feel truly meaningful. The speaker is not confused. The speaker simply sees more than one side. Here are several phrases that help you express nuance to some extent on the surface. At the same time, that said, it depends largely on. There is some truth to that. Although, the issue is more complicated than it first appears. Listen to these phrases in context. To some extent, social media helps people maintain relationships. That said, online contact cannot always replace time spent together. On the surface, working from home seems easier. In reality, it requires strong boundaries and self-discipline. There is some truth to the idea that pressure can motivate us, although too much pressure usually reduces the quality of our work. The issue is more complicated than it first appears because people experience the same situation in very different ways. Now repeat two of those sentences. On the surface, working from home seems easier. In reality, it requires strong boundaries and self-discipline. Again, on the surface, working from home seems easier. In reality, it requires strong boundaries and self-discipline. Now, the second one, there is some truth to the idea that pressure can motivate us, although too much pressure usually reduces the quality of our work. Good. Let's make this practical with a question. Is having a busy life a sign of success? Before you answer, avoid choosing only yes or no. Try this structure. There is some truth to the idea that at the same time, for me, the real question is, here is one possible answer. There is some truth to the idea that a full schedule can reflect ambition and responsibility. At the same time, being constantly busy may mean that a person has not set clear priorities. For me, the real question is not how much someone does, but whether those activities support the life they actually want. Now give your answer. There is some truth to the idea that at the same time. For me, the real question is, this structure is useful in conversations, meetings, essays, and interviews because it shows that you can think beyond the obvious answer. Now we are going to enter our first realistic situation. Imagine you are in a meeting with 3 colleagues. Your team is planning a new customer service system. One colleague, Marcus, suggests answering every customer message within 10 minutes at all times of the day. He believes that faster replies will make customers happier. The manager asks for your opinion. You have concerns. The team is already busy, and people cannot remain available every hour. You do not want to reject the idea rudely, but you also do not want to pretend that it is practical. What could you say? You might begin like this. I can see why faster response times would improve the customer experience. My concern is that a 10-minute target may be difficult to maintain without putting the team under constant pressure. Perhaps we could guarantee a reply within 1 hour during working hours and use an automatic message outside those hours. This response does 4 things. First, it recognizes the value in Marcus's idea. Second, it names the concern clearly. Third, it explains the likely consequence. Fourth, it offers an alternative. This is a powerful disagreement pattern. Recognize, raise the concern, explain the impact, offer an alternative. Let's practice each part. Recognize. I can see why faster response times would improve the customer experience. Repeat. I can see why faster response times would improve the customer experience. Raise the concern. My concern is that a 10-minute target may be difficult to maintain. Repeat. My concern is that a 10-minute target may be difficult to maintain. Explain the impact. It could put the team under constant pressure. Repeat. It could put the team under constant pressure. Offer an alternative. Perhaps we could set a 1-hour target during working hours instead. Repeat. Perhaps we could set a 1-hour target during working hours instead. Now say the complete response in your own voice. Do not rush. A calm pace makes you sound more confident. This pattern also works outside the workplace. Imagine a friend wants your group to take an expensive trip. You like the idea, but the cost may exclude some people. You could say, the trip sounds exciting, and I understand why you chose that destination. My only concern is that the total cost might be too high for some people. What if we compare a few less expensive options before we decide? Or imagine a family member wants to make an important decision immediately. You could say, I understand why you want to solve this quickly. I'm just concerned that we may overlook something important if we decide today. Could we take one evening to think it through and talk again tomorrow? Advanced disagreement is not about hiding your opinion. It is about making your opinion easier for another person to hear. Now let's talk about a common difficulty. What happens when someone disagrees with you? Many learners prepare their own opinion but do not prepare for the response. If the other person challenges them, they lose confidence. Here are 4 phrases that help you stay calm. That's a fair question. Let me explain what I mean. I may not have expressed that clearly. I see the situation differently. And here's why. Imagine Marcus replies, but customers will leave if we make them wait an hour. You could say, that's a fair concern. I'm not suggesting that we ignore urgent messages. I'm saying that a target only works if the team can meet it consistently. We might need separate response times for urgent and non-urgent requests. Notice the difference between defending yourself and clarifying your idea. Defending often sounds emotional. Clarifying sounds focused. Repeat. I'm not suggesting that we ignore urgent messages. I'm saying that the system needs to be realistic. Again, I'm not suggesting that we ignore urgent messages. I'm saying that the system needs to be realistic. This I'm not saying. I'm saying pattern is extremely useful when someone misunderstands your point. I'm not saying we should cancel the plan. I'm saying we need more time to prepare. I'm not saying money is unimportant. I'm saying it is not the only factor. I'm not saying the idea will fail. I'm saying we should test it before using it everywhere. Now, create one sentence about your own life. I'm saying very good. The ability to clarify without becoming defensive will improve not only your English, but also the quality of your conversations. Now let's shift from expressing ideas to receiving them. Advanced communication depends on active listening. Active listening is not waiting silently until it is your turn to speak. It means showing the other person that you understand both the information and the feeling behind it. Imagine your friend says, "I've been exhausted lately. My manager keeps giving me new tasks, and I'm trying to help my family at the same time. I feel guilty at work because I can't do everything, and I feel guilty at home because I'm always thinking about work." A weak response might be, "You should relax. The advice may be well-intentioned, but it is too quick. It does not show that you understood the conflict." A stronger response would be, "It sounds as though you're being pulled in two directions, and no matter where you focus, you feel that you're disappointing someone. That must be exhausting." This response reflects the deeper meaning. The friend did not only say, "I am tired." The friend said, "I feel responsible to everyone, and I cannot meet every expectation." Here are 3 levels of active listening. Level 1, reflect the facts. So your workload has increased and you also have more responsibilities at home. Level 2, reflect the emotion. It sounds as though you feel exhausted and guilty. Level 3, invite the person to continue. What part of the situation feels most difficult right now? Put the levels together. So your workload has increased and you also have more responsibilities at home. It sounds as though you feel exhausted and guilty. What part of the situation feels most difficult right now? Repeat that slowly. So your workload has increased and you also have more responsibilities at home. It sounds as though you feel exhausted and guilty. What part of the situation feels most difficult right now? This is emotionally intelligent English. Now listen to another situation. Someone says, "I applied for a training program that I really wanted, but I wasn't accepted. I know it's not the end of the world, but I'd imagined how much it could change my career. Now I feel foolish for getting so excited. How could you respond?" First, reflect the facts. You invested a lot of hope in that opportunity, and the result was disappointing. Second, reflect the emotion. It makes sense that you feel let down. Third, invite the person to continue or choose what they need. Do you want to talk about what happened? Or would you rather take your mind off it for a while? The final question is especially thoughtful because not everyone wants advice. Sometimes a person wants to be heard. Sometimes they want practical help. Sometimes they want a break from the problem. Here are several natural supportive phrases. That sounds like a lot to carry. I can understand why that affected you. You don't have to solve everything today. Would it help to talk it through? Do you want advice, or do you just need me to listen? I'm here. Whatever you decide. Repeat the 2 phrases you would most like someone to say to you. Now think about this question. When someone you care about is struggling, do you usually listen, give advice, or try to solve the problem? Answer in 3 parts. What you usually do, why you do it, what you might do differently in the future. Here is a model. I usually try to give advice because solving the problem makes me feel useful. However, I'm beginning to realize that advice can feel overwhelming when someone is not ready for it. In the future, I want to ask what kind of support the person needs before I respond, "Now give your answer." This is a valuable topic because your English becomes more natural when it expresses the way people actually relate to one another. Let's move into emotional precision. Many advanced learners know a large number of emotional words but still return to happy, sad, angry, tired, and nervous in conversation. The problem is not vocabulary size. The problem is access. You need practice connecting specific feelings to real situations. Let's begin with 4 emotions that learners often confuse: disappointed, discouraged, frustrated, and overwhelmed. Disappointed means that reality did not meet your hopes or expectations. I was disappointed that the event was canceled. Discouraged means that a difficulty has reduced your confidence or motivation. After several unsuccessful interviews, I began to feel discouraged. Frustrated means that something is preventing progress, and this creates irritation. I felt frustrated because the website kept rejecting my application. Overwhelmed means that the amount of pressure, information, emotion, or responsibility feels greater than you can manage. I felt overwhelmed by the number of decisions I had to make. Listen to the differences again. The result was worse than I hoped. I felt disappointed. I started to doubt whether I could succeed. I felt discouraged. I kept trying, but nothing worked. I felt frustrated. Everything seemed to demand my attention at once. I felt overwhelmed. Now, I will describe a situation. Choose the most precise emotion. You prepared carefully for a presentation, but the meeting was canceled 5 minutes before it began. You may feel disappointed. You are trying to complete an online payment, but the same error appears again and again. You may feel frustrated. You have work deadlines, family responsibilities, and financial concerns at the same time. You may feel overwhelmed. You have practiced English for months, but you still freeze in conversations and begin to wonder if you will ever improve. You may feel discouraged. Naming an emotion accurately can reduce its power. It also helps other people understand what kind of support you need. Now let's add more subtle emotions. Conflicted means that you have opposing feelings about the same situation. I feel conflicted about accepting the promotion. It's a great opportunity, but it would leave less time for my family. Relieved means that worry or difficulty has ended. I was relieved when the doctor said the problem was not serious. Uneasy means slightly worried or uncomfortable. Often without a clear reason, something about the agreement made me feel uneasy. Restless means unable to relax because you want something to change or happen. After several years in the same role, I began to feel restless. Fulfilled means deeply satisfied because something feels meaningful. Teaching can be demanding, but I find it deeply fulfilling. Resentful means angry because you believe you have been treated unfairly, especially over time. I became resentful because everyone expected me to help, but no one asked whether I was okay. Now complete these sentences with a real example from your life. I felt relieved when I sometimes feel conflicted about. One situation that makes me uneasy is I feel fulfilled when do not search for a perfect answer. Choose the first honest example that comes to mind. Advanced emotional vocabulary is not decoration. It gives you more accurate control over your story. Now let's connect emotion with boundaries. A boundary is a limit that protects your time, energy, privacy, or well-being. Many people can set boundaries easily in their first language, but become either too direct or too passive in English. Imagine a colleague sends you non-urgent messages late every evening and expects an immediate answer. You do not want to be rude, but the situation is affecting your personal time. You could say, "I'm happy to help with urgent issues, but I'm trying to be more consistent about disconnecting after work. If something can wait until the next morning, I'd appreciate it if we could discuss it during working hours." This boundary is calm, specific, and reasonable. It includes what you are willing to do. It names the limit. It gives a practical alternative. Here is another situation. A friend repeatedly asks about a personal topic that you do not want to discuss. You could say, "I know you're asking because you care, but I'm not ready to talk about that yet. If that changes, I'll let you know, or I'd rather keep that private for now." I hope you can understand. Here is a third situation. Someone asks you to take on an additional responsibility, but your schedule is already full. You could say, "Thank you for thinking of me. I don't have the capacity to do this properly at the moment, so I need to say no." Notice the phrase, "I don't have the capacity." It means you do not currently have enough time, energy, or attention. It is often more accurate than saying, "I don't want to." Repeat these boundary phrases. "I'm not available this evening, but I can help tomorrow morning. I'd rather keep that private for now. I don't have the capacity to take on anything else this week. That doesn't work for me. Could we find another option? I need some time to think before I give you an answer." Boundaries do not require a long apology. You can be kind without giving away your right to decide. Now let's practice a complete boundary response. I will give you the situation. Your manager asks you to complete an additional report by tomorrow, but you already have 2 urgent tasks. Start by showing cooperation. "I understand that the report is important." State the reality. "At the moment, I'm also responsible for the client update and the budget review." Ask for a decision. "Could you help me decide which task should take priority?" Complete response. "I understand that the report is important. At the moment, I'm also responsible for the client update and the budget review. Could you help me decide which task should take priority?" This is stronger than saying, "I'm too busy." It turns a vague complaint into a clear request for prioritization. Repeat the complete response. Excellent. Now we are going to develop one of the most important advanced speaking abilities, storytelling. A story keeps attention because it creates movement. Something was true. Then something happened. A problem appeared. A choice was made. Something changed. Weak stories often contain too many facts, but no clear point. The speaker describes every detail, and the listener does not know why the story matters. A strong personal story has 5 parts: the situation, the tension, the turning point, the result, the reflection. Listen to the story about a woman named Laura. For most of her 20s, Laura worked for a stable company in her hometown. The job was predictable. The salary was reasonable. And her family liked the fact that she lived nearby. From the outside, everything seemed fine. But over time, Laura began to feel restless. She had always wanted to work in environmental design, yet her role involved very little creativity. One afternoon, she found an advertisement for a 1-year training program in another city. The program looked ideal, but joining it would mean leaving her job, using much of her savings, and moving away from the people she knew. At first, she tried to ignore the opportunity. She told herself that it was unrealistic. and that responsible people did not leave secure jobs without a guarantee, but the deadline stayed in her mind. Every morning, she imagined applying. Every evening, she found another reason not to. The turning point came during a conversation with her father. Laura expected him to tell her to stay. Instead, he asked, "If you do nothing, how will you feel about this decision in 5 years?" That question changed the way she viewed the risk. She realized that staying also had a cost. It might protect her from immediate uncertainty, but it could create long-term regret. Laura applied. The year that followed was difficult. She missed her family, worried about money, and often felt less talented than the other students. Still, she completed the program and later found work with a small design company. Looking back, Laura does not say that everyone should leave a stable job. Her lesson is more thoughtful. She says, "I learned that safety and growth are not always found in the same place. Sometimes the right decision is not the one that removes fear. It is the one that makes the fear worth facing." Now let's examine the story. The situation: Laura had a stable life and a secure job. The tension: she wanted a different career, but change involved money, distance, and uncertainty. The turning point: her father asked how she would feel if she did nothing. The result: she entered the program and eventually changed careers. The reflection: safety and growth do not always exist in the same place. Several natural expressions made the story flow. From the outside, everything seemed fine. Over time, she began to feel restless. At first, she tried to ignore the opportunity. The turning point came when that question changed the way she viewed the risk. Looking back, repeat those storytelling transitions. From the outside, everything seemed fine. Over time, I began to feel differently. At first, I tried to ignore the problem. The turning point came when that experience changed the way I viewed the situation. Looking back, I understand it differently now. Now think of a decision or experience from your own life. It does not need to be dramatic. Perhaps you changed jobs, ended a habit, started learning English, moved to a new place, trusted someone, or decided to protect your time. Use the 5-part structure. What was the situation? What created tension? What was the turning point? What happened afterward? What did you learn? Begin with this phrase: for a long time, then continue. The difficulty was, the turning point came when, in the end, looking back, take your time and tell the story. If you could not finish, that is okay. Personal storytelling is demanding because you must manage memory, emotion, grammar, and structure at the same time. Save the story and try again later. The second version will be stronger. Now let's examine how to make a story more engaging without making it longer. The secret is specific detail. Compare these sentences. I was nervous before the interview, and 10 minutes before the interview, I was sitting in a cafe across the street, reading the same paragraph on my notes again and again without understanding a word. The second sentence shows nervousness. Instead of only naming it, compare. My friend supported me, and my friend called me every Sunday for 3 months and listened without trying to tell me what to do. Specific behavior makes the support real. Here is a useful question for better storytelling. What could someone have seen, heard, or noticed in that moment? Instead of saying, "The room was uncomfortable," you might say, "No one spoke, and everyone kept looking at the clock." Instead of saying, "I felt relieved," You might say, for the first time that week, I could take a full breath. Instead of saying, the city was busy, you might say, people moved around me so quickly that I felt as though I were standing still. Now improve one simple sentence. The sentence is, I had a difficult day. Add one detail that shows why, perhaps, by lunchtime, I had already missed a train, forgotten an important document, and received a message that changed my entire schedule. Your version can be different. Storytelling is where grammar becomes human. Past tenses, linking phrases, emotional vocabulary, and reflection all begin to work together. Now we are ready to move into professional communication. Many learners believe professional English must sound formal and complicated. In reality, the best professional language is clear, respectful, and focused on action. Let's begin with meetings. In a meeting, you may need to enter the conversation, clarify information, express à concert, bring the group back to the main point, or summarize a decision. Here are 5 phrases you can use immediately. Could I add something here? Just to clarify, are we saying that one concern we may need to consider is, can we come back to the main question? So, the next step is that correct? Listen to a realistic meeting exchange. The manager says, we're hoping to launch the new service next month. Marketing is ready, and the website is almost complete. You know that the support team has not been trained yet. You say, could I add something here? The launch date may be possible, but one concern we need to consider is staff preparation. At the moment, the support team has not received training on the new system. Could we confirm when that will happen before we finalize the date? This is professional because it identifies a risk and connects it to a decision later. The manager explains the training plan, but the answer is unclear. You say, just to clarify, are we saying that training will begin next week and be completed before the test launch? At the end, you summarize. So, the next step is for Anna to confirm the training schedule by Thursday, and then we'll make a final decision about the launch date. Is that correct? These phrases make you sound engaged, not passive. Repeat them. Could I add something here? One concern we may need to consider is staff preparation. Just to clarify, are we saying that training will begin next week? So, the next step is to confirm the schedule. Is that correct? Now let's practice giving an update. A strong work update answers 4 questions. What has been completed? What is still in progress? Is there a problem? What happens next? Here is an example. I've completed the first draft of the report and checked the figures with the finance team. I'm still waiting for the regional sales data, which should arrive tomorrow. That delay means I may not finish the final version by noon, but I can send it by the end of the day. Once the data arrives, I'll update the charts and do one final review. Notice the update is honest. Without sounding helpless, it names the delay and gives a revised plan. Now create an update about a real task in your life. It could be related to work, study, your home, or a personal project. I've completed. I'm still working on. The main difficulty is, my next step is, speak for 30 seconds. Good. Now let's discuss feedback. Feedback becomes difficult when the speaker is either too vague or too harsh. Good job is positive but not specific. This is confusing, is specific about the problem but not helpful. A useful feedback structure is name the strength, describe the effect, suggest one improvement. For example, the introduction is clear and the example makes the main idea easy to understand. I think the middle section could be shorter because some points are repeated. If you combine the second and third paragraphs, the argument will feel stronger. This feedback gives the person something they can use. Repeat the key phrases. One thing that works particularly well is, the reason this is effective is, one area we could strengthen is, it might help to, have you considered? Now imagine a colleague gives a presentation with excellent research, but too much text on each slide. You could say, the research is thorough, and your examples make the recommendation convincing. One area we could strengthen is the visual presentation. Some slides contain a lot of text, so it may be difficult for the audience to listen and read at the same time. It might help to keep the main point on the slide and explain the details aloud. Notice that the person is not attacked. The work is discussed. Receiving feedback also requires advanced language. Instead of becoming defensive, you can say, that's helpful. Could you show me which section felt unclear? I hadn't considered that. Let me think about how I could adjust it. I see your point. I may keep this part, but I agree that the explanation needs to be shorter. Thank you for being specific. That gives me something practical to work on. You do not have to agree with every suggestion. You can acknowledge the feedback and still make your own decision. For example, I understand the concern. In this case, I'd prefer to keep the longer example because the audience is unfamiliar with the topic. However, I can simplify the language so it is easier to follow. That response is thoughtful, not defensive. Now let's talk about asking for help professionally. Some learners make requests too indirectly because they are afraid of sounding demanding. The result is that the other person does not understand what is needed. A clear request includes context, action, and timing. Context. I'm preparing the final proposal for Friday's meeting. Action. Could you check whether the cost estimates are still accurate? Timing. If possible, I'd need your feedback by Wednesday afternoon. Complete request. I'm preparing the final proposal for Friday's meeting. Could you check whether the cost estimates are still accurate? If possible, I'd need your feedback by Wednesday afternoon. That is polite and easy to act on. Now repeat. Could you check whether the figures are still accurate? If possible, I'd need your feedback by Wednesday afternoon. Please let me know if that timeline creates a problem. The final sentence creates space for honest communication. Now think of one request you need to make this week. Build it with context, action, and timing. Speak it aloud. Advanced professional English is not a performance. It is a tool for helping people understand what needs to happen. Now let's step away from work and look at the way technology affects attention and relationships. Many people say that phones have made us connected. Others say they have made us distracted. Both statements can be true. Imagine two friends meeting for dinner. They have not seen each other for several months. During the first 20 minutes, both phones remain on the table. Every few minutes, one person checks a notification. Neither friend intends to be rude. But the conversation never becomes deep enough to feel satisfying. Afterward, one friend says, "It was nice to see you, but I feel as though we barely talked." This small situation raises a larger question. Is physical presence the same as attention? How would you answer? Use this structure. My first reaction is, however, when I think about it more deeply, what matters most is, here is a model. My first reaction is that checking a phone occasionally is normal because messages are part of modern life. However, when I think about it more deeply, repeated interruptions can make the other person feel that the conversation is not important. What matters most is whether both people feel genuinely present Now answer in your own words. This topic gives us several useful expressions to be fully present, to divide your attention, to get distracted, to check something out of habit, to have a meaningful conversation, to feel ignored, to set a boundary around technology, listen to them in context. I noticed that I was checking my phone out of habit. Even when no message had arrived, it is difficult to have a meaningful conversation when both people are dividing their attention. I'm trying to set better boundaries around technology, especially before bed. When someone keeps looking at a screen, the other person may feel ignored. Repeat the sentence that feels most relevant to you. Now let's examine social comparison. Online, we often see the most exciting parts of other people's lives: the promotion, the trip, the new home, the perfect morning routine, the successful project. We rarely see the confusion, debt, arguments, loneliness, or ordinary days that exist behind those images. As a result, we may compare our complete life with someone else's edited moment. Here are several ways to discuss that idea. Social media can create a distorted picture of reality. It is easy to compare yourself unfairly when you do not know the full story. Constant comparison can make ordinary progress feel insignificant. At the same time, seeing other people succeed can be motivating when we view it in a healthy way. The effect depends partly on how consciously we use the platform. Now respond to this question. Does seeing other people's success motivate you or create pressure? Try to include both sides. For example, it depends on my state of mind. When I feel secure, another person's success can give me ideas and remind me what is possible. When I already feel uncertain, the same content can make me believe that I am falling behind. I'm learning to notice that reaction and step away when comparison stops being useful. That answer is personal, balanced, and specific. Now give your answer. Advanced English grows when the topic matters enough that you genuinely want to express yourself. Let's go deeper into the language of comparison and pressure. To fall behind means to make less progress than expected or than other people. To keep up with means to move at the same speed as a demand. Trend. Hors personne. To measure yourself against someone means to judge your progress by comparing it with theirs. To lose sight of something means to forget an important purpose or truth. To put things into perspective means to view a situation more realistically. Listen. I sometimes feel as though I'm falling behind, even though I'm making steady progress. Trying to keep up with everyone else leaves me exhausted. When I measure myself against people online, I lose sight of how much I have already achieved. Taking a break helps me put things into perspective. Repeat 2 sentences that you want to remember. Now create 1 honest sentence using fall behind, keep up with, or lose sight of. Excellent. We have now practiced clear opinions, disagreement, active listening, emotional precision, boundaries, storytelling, professional communication, and balanced discussion. Notice how these abilities connect. Advanced English is not a collection of separate words. It is a system for thinking and relating to people. Now we will turn toward change, uncertainty, and resilience. Change is difficult to discuss because it often contains opposing emotions. You can be grateful for a new opportunity and still miss your old life. You can know that a relationship needs to end and still feel sad. You can choose a new direction and still wonder whether you made a mistake. Mature English allows you to express contradiction without trying to remove it. Here are several patterns. Part of me feels, while another part of me, I know this is the right decision. But that doesn't make it easy. I'm excited about what comes next. Although I'm still grieving what I'm leaving behind, two things can be true at the same time. I haven't changed my mind. I'm simply adjusting emotionally. Listen to this example. Part of me is excited about moving to a new city because I'll have more opportunities. Another part of me is afraid of losing the support system I have here. I know the move could be good for me, but knowing that does not remove the uncertainty. Repeat. I know the change could be good for me, but knowing that does not remove the uncertainty. This sentence is useful because it allows reason and emotion to exist together. Now, complete these thoughts. Part of me wants, another part of me worries. I know, but I still feel. Speak about a real choice. If you feel comfortable, now let's learn the difference between uncertainty and indecision. Uncertainty means you do not know what will happen. Indecision means you are having difficulty choosing what to do. You can make a clear decision and still feel uncertain about the result. For example, I've decided to accept the offer, although I'm uncertain about how quickly I'll adapt. Or you can have enough information but remain indecisive because both options have value. I keep changing my mind because each choice would require me to give up something important. Useful expressions include, I'm weighing the options. I'm trying to think beyond the immediate result. I'm leaning toward the second option. I haven't ruled anything out yet. I need to sit with the decision for a while. My main hesitation is, the deciding factor will be, listen to a realistic decision. I am considering two job offers. The first offers a higher salary and a clear path for promotion, but the work itself does not interest me very much. The second pays less, although I would learn more and work with people I respect. At the moment, I'm leaning toward the second offer. My main hesitation is financial. So the deciding factor will be whether I can manage the lower salary without creating constant stress. This answer compares, expresses preference, names concern, and identifies a decision criterion. Now imagine you are choosing between two options, a safe choice and an interesting choice. You do not need to share a private decision. You can invent a situation. Use these phrases on the one hand. On the other hand, at the moment, I'm leaning toward, my main hesitation is, the deciding factor will be, speak for 1 minute. Good. Now I want to tell you another story. This one is about resilience, but not the dramatic kind we often see in motivational speeches. It is about quiet resilience. A man named Ben opened a small bakery with his sister. They had spent years saving money and learning the business. In the first few months, customers responded well, and the future looked promising. Then major road repairs began outside the shop. Access became difficult. The street was noisy, and the number of customers fell sharply. Ben's first reaction was anger. The problem was not caused by a bad product or poor service, yet the business was suffering. He spent several weeks complaining about the situation and hoping it would change quickly. His sister reacted differently. She said, "We cannot control the road, but we can control how people reach us." Together, they began taking orders online, created a simple delivery route, and offered bread subscriptions to nearby offices. None of these changes produced immediate success. Some days, the cost of delivery almost equaled the money they earned. Still, the new system slowly improved. By the time the road reopened 6 months later, the bakery had two kinds of customers: people who visited the shop and people who ordered regularly from work or home. Ben later said that the difficult period changed his definition of resilience. He had thought resilience meant staying strong and continuing with the original plan. Instead, he learned that resilience often means accepting that the original plan no longer fits reality. Let's examine the language and the lesson. The number of customers fell sharply means it decreased quickly and significantly. His first reaction was, anger introduces an immediate emotional response. We cannot control the road, but we can control how people reach us. Shifts attention from the fixed problem to possible action. None of these changes produced immediate success, keeps the story realistic. Adaptation did not solve everything overnight. The original plan no longer fits. Reality expresses an important form of flexibility. Now answer, what was outside Ben's control? What remained within his control? What did he misunderstand about resilience at first? How did his view change? Now connect the lesson to your own life. Think of a plan that no longer fits reality. Perhaps your schedule changed. Your goal changed. Your resources changed. Or you learned something new. Complete this sentence. I used to believe I had to. Now I realize I can. For example, I used to believe I had to study English for 2 hours every evening. Now I realize I can make steady progress with shorter practice that fits my schedule. Your sentence can be about anything. Quiet resilience is not pretending that a problem does not hurt. It is using the energy you have on the choices that remain. Repeat that idea. Resilience is using the energy I have on the choices that remain. Again, resilience is using the energy I have on the choices that remain. Now let's take a short mental pause. You have already worked with a great deal of language. If you feel tired, that is normal. Do not try to remember every phrase. Choose the ideas that connect with your life. Those are the ones your brain is most likely to keep. Take a breath. Relax your jaw and shoulders. When you're ready, let's continue. We are now going to focus on conversational flow. Many learners think fluency means speaking without pauses. That is not true. Fluent speakers pause. Change direction. Search for words and correct themselves. What makes them sound natural is that they know how to manage those moments without abandoning the conversation. Consider this question. What do you think makes a life meaningful? That is not a question most people can answer instantly. A natural speaker may begin, that's a big question. Let me think for a moment. I suppose, for me, a meaningful life has something to do with connection and contribution. By that, I mean feeling close to people and knowing that what I do is useful in some way. I'm still figuring it out. Though, my answer has definitely changed over time. Notice the thinking phrases, that's a big question. Let me think for a moment. I suppose, for me, by that, I mean, I'm still figuring it out. Though, these phrases do not weaken the answer. They make the thinking process visible. Here are several natural ways to create thinking time. Let me put that into words. I've never thought about it in exactly that way. My first thought is, if I had to give a short answer, I'd sigh. There are a few ways to look at it. What I'm trying to say is, let me rephrase that. The example that comes to mind is repeat 4 of them. Let me put that into words. My first thought is, what I'm trying to say is, let me rephrase that. These phrases are useful only when they support a real idea. If every sentence begins with you know, actually, or to be honest, the language can become distracting. A good filler gives your mind a moment and guides the listener. An empty filler simply repeats. Let's practice a difficult question. Do people need failure in order to grow? Begin with a thinking phrase. There are a few ways to look at it. Then give your first position. I don't think failure is the only path to growth. Add nuance. However, failure often forces us to examine assumptions that success allows us to ignore. Give an example. For instance, a failed project may reveal weaknesses in communication, planning, or teamwork. Conclude. So I would say failure is not automatically valuable. It becomes valuable when we are willing to learn from it. Complete answer. There are a few ways to look at it. I don't think failure is the only path to growth. However, failure often forces us to examine assumptions that success allows us to ignore. For instance, a failed project may reveal weaknesses in communication, planning, or teamwork. So I would say failure is not automatically valuable. It becomes valuable when we are willing to learn from it. Now answer the question in your own way. Use a thinking phrase. State your view. Add nuance. Give an example. And conclude. This 5-step movement can help you speak for 1 or 2 minutes without memorizing a script. Now let's talk about correcting yourself. Some learners stop completely after a mistake. They apologize, return to the beginning, and try to rebuild the entire sentence. This breaks the flow and increases anxiety. Natural speakers repair language quickly. They say, I met her on Thursday. Sorry. I mean Tuesday. The project took 3 months or closer to 4. Actually, he rejected the idea. Well, rejected, maybe too strong. He had some serious concerns about it. I was angry at the time. Let me rephrase that. I felt ignored. And the anger came from that. Useful repair phrases include, sorry, or rather, let me correct that. That's not quite the word I want. What I mean is, let me be more precise. Repeat, that's not quite the word I want. Let me be more precise. Making a correction is not evidence that your English is weak. It is evidence that you are monitoring your meaning. Now let's work on keeping another person talking. A conversation becomes natural when both people help create it. If someone shares an experience and you respond only with, oh, really, or that's nice, the conversation may end even though your grammar is correct. Good follow-up questions connect directly to what the person said. Imagine someone tells you, I've started taking evening classes in photography. A general follow-up is, do you like it? A richer follow-up could be, what made you decide to start now? What kind of photography are you most interested in? Has the course changed the way you notice things in everyday life? Which part has been more difficult than you expected? These questions invite a story, not only yes or no. Here are 4 types of follow-up question. Origin. What led you to that decision? Detail. What was that experience actually like? Emotion. How did you feel when that happened? Reflection. Has it changed the way you think about anything? Listen to a short conversation. Sam says, I recently started volunteering at a community kitchen on Saturdays. You ask, what led you to that? Sam replies, I wanted to meet people outside work and do something useful with my time. You ask, what has the experience been like so far? Sam says, more demanding than I expected. We prepare hundreds of meals, so it gets busy. But I like the sense of teamwork. You ask, has it changed the way you think about your community? Sam says, definitely. I used to think community problems were too large for one person to affect. Now I see that small, regular contributions really matter. The questions moved the conversation from activity to motivation, experience, and reflection. Now imagine someone tells you, I've decided to take a break from social media for a month. Create 3 follow-up questions. One about the reason one about the experience, one about what the person hopes to learn, you might ask, what made you feel that you needed a break? What do you think will be most difficult about it? What are you hoping will change by the end of the month? Your questions can be different. Now let's connect small talk to deeper conversation. Small talk is not meaningless. It is often a safe doorway. The skill is knowing how to walk through that doorway without forcing the conversation. Someone says, "Work has been busy lately." You could stay at the surface, "Yes, everyone seems busy." Or you could invite more detail, "Busy in a good way." Or the exhausting kind, "That question is light but more personal." Someone says, "I'm going home to see my family this weekend." You could ask, "Do you get to see them often?" Or, "What do you most look forward to when you go home?" Someone says, "I've been trying to exercise more." You could ask, "Have you found a routine that actually fits your life?" The phrase "actually fits your life" recognizes that the real challenge is often not knowledge but consistency. Now practice turning a surface topic into a meaningful question. Topic 1. The weather has been unusually hot. You might ask, does the heat change the way you organize your day? Topic 2. Someone moved to a new neighborhood. You might ask, what has helped the new place begin to feel like home? Topic 3. Someone finished a long project. You might ask, what did the project teach you that you did not expect to learn? Good conversation is curiosity shaped by respect. Now let's practice paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means expressing the same central idea in different words. It is essential when you cannot remember an exact word, when you want to confirm understanding, when you summarize a discussion, or when you need to explain something to a different audience. Suppose you cannot remember the word procrastinate. You could say, it means delaying something. Even though you know you need to do it, that explanation is successful. Communication did not stop because one word was missing. Suppose you cannot remember subscription. You could say, it's an arrangement where you pay regularly to continue receiving a service. Suppose you cannot remember reliable. You could say, it describes someone or something you can depend on. You can explain an unknown word through function, appearance, category, purpose. Or example, it is used for, it looks like, it is a type of, it is the opposite of, it is what happens when. For example, let's practice explain the word deadline without using the word itself. You could say, it is the final time or date by which something must be completed. Explain privacy. It is the ability to keep personal information or parts of your life away from public attention. Explain compromise. It is an agreement in which each side accepts less than everything they originally wanted. Now choose one English word you know and explain it without saying the word. Imagine you are helping another learner guess it. This practice builds flexibility. Paraphrasing ideas requires another skill, separating the main meaning from the original wording. Listen to this statement. People often wait for motivation before they begin. But action itself can create motivation. How could we paraphrase it? We might say, starting is not always the result of feeling motivated. Sometimes taking the first step produces the energy to continue. Same idea. Different language. Here is another statement. Constant access to information can make it harder to decide what deserves our attention. Paraphrase. Because information is always available, choosing what to focus on has become more difficult. Now try this one. Confidence grows when we repeatedly do things that once made us uncomfortable. You could say, we become more confident by practicing difficult actions until they begin to feel familiar. Your version may be different. Now let's move from paraphrasing to summarizing. A summary keeps the essential message and removes supporting detail. Listen to this short passage. For years, Mina planned every hour of her day because she believed productivity required strict control. Her schedule looked impressive, but one unexpected event could ruin the entire plan and leave her feeling that she had failed. Eventually, she began planning only 3 important tasks each day and leaving space for the unexpected. She completed slightly fewer tasks, but she became more consistent and much less stressed. What is the core message? Mina replaced an inflexible schedule with a simpler system that improved consistency and reduced stress. That one sentence captures the change and the result. Here is a slightly longer summary. Mina used to organize every hour, but her strict schedule became stressful whenever plans changed. She later focused on 3 priorities and allowed more flexibility, which helped her work more consistently. Now summarize the passage yourself in 1 or 2 sentences. When you summarize, ask who or what is the passage about, what changed or happened, why does it matter? This skill is useful in meetings, exams, conversation, and professional writing. Now let's practice summarizing a conversation. Imagine 2 colleagues discuss a delayed project. One says the design team needs another week because the client requested major changes. The other explains that the sales team has already promised a delivery date. They agree to send the client a basic version on the original date and deliver the additional features 1 week later. A clear summary is, the project was delayed by new client requests, but the sales team had already committed to a deadline. The colleagues agreed to deliver a basic version first and add the remaining features the following week. Notice that the summary does not include every sentence. It gives the problem, conflict, and solution. Now repeat. The project was delayed by new client requests, but the team agreed on a 2-stage delivery plan. You can make a summary shorter or longer depending on what the listener needs. That brings us to audience awareness. Advanced speakers adjust language for the person and situation. You would not explain a technical problem to a customer in the same way you explain it to an engineer. You would not tell a close friend about a disappointment in the same tone you use during a formal interview. Imagine a software system has stopped working. To a technical colleague, you might say, the latest update appears to have created a conflict with the payment module. We're reviewing the error logs and may need to restore the previous version. To a customer, you might say, we're currently experiencing a technical problem that may affect payments. Our team is working on it, and we'll update you as soon as the service is available again. The truth is the same. The detail and vocabulary are different. Now imagine you missed a deadline because you were ill. To a close friend, I felt awful for several days and could barely concentrate, so everything got behind. To a manager, I was unwell earlier this week, which affected my progress. I have now completed the urgent sections and can deliver the remaining work by tomorrow afternoon. Professional language focuses on relevant information and next steps. Audience awareness is not pretending to be someone else. It is choosing the version of your message that is most useful in the moment. Now we are going to develop persuasive communication. Persuasion does not mean using pressure. It means making your reasoning easy to understand and giving another person a fair reason to consider your idea. A clear, persuasive message often includes the current situation, the problem or opportunity, the proposed action, the benefit, the possible concern and response. Imagine you want your workplace to introduce one meeting-free afternoon each week. You could say, at the moment, many employees have meetings spread across every day, which makes it difficult to concentrate on work that requires long periods of focus. I'd like to suggest a meeting-free Wednesday afternoon. This would give people a predictable block of time for detailed tasks without preventing teams from meeting during the rest of the week. Some urgent discussions would still need to happen, of course. But we could treat those as exceptions. A 4-week trial would allow us to measure whether the change improves productivity. Let's identify the structure. Current situation meetings are spread across every day. Problem-focused work becomes difficult. Proposal, a meeting-free Wednesday afternoon. Benefit predictable time for detailed tasks. Concern, urgent discussions may still be needed. Response. Allow exceptions and test the system for 4 weeks. Useful persuasive phrases include, I'd like to suggest. The main advantage would be, from a practical perspective, one possible concern is we could address that by, rather than making a permanent change, we could test it for. The results would help us decide whether, repeat, one possible concern is that urgent discussions may still be needed. We could address that by allowing exceptions when necessary, rather than making a permanent change. We could test the idea for 4 weeks. Now choose a small improvement you would like to suggest in your home, workplace, school, or community. Explain the current situation. Name the problem. Suggest one action. Explain the benefit. Recognize one concern. Offer a response. Speak for 1 minute. The goal is not to sound powerful. The goal is to make your idea understandable and reasonable. Now let's talk about solving problems collaboratively. When a conversation becomes difficult, people often spend too much time proving who caused the problem. Responsibility matters, but a solution requires movement. Here are phrases that shift a discussion toward action. What would a good outcome look like for both sides? Which part of this can we change immediately? What information are we still missing? What is the smallest useful next step? What would prevent this from happening again? Which option creates the fewest new problems? Imagine 2 housemates arguing because shared spaces are often untidy. One believes the other is careless. The other feels criticized and says work has been exhausting. A blame-focused conversation sounds like this. You never clean anything. That's not true. You complain about everything. A solution-focused version could begin, I don't want this to become a personal argument. The main issue is that we have different expectations about the shared space. Could we agree on a simple standard and divide the tasks in a way that feels realistic? The other person might say, that makes sense. I can do more, but I need the tasks to be clear. When I get home late, I don't always notice what needs attention. Then, how about we each take responsibility for specific tasks and do a quick check on Sunday? This language does not erase frustration. It gives the frustration somewhere productive to go, repeat. I don't want this to become a personal argument. The main issue is that we have different expectations. Could we agree on a standard that feels realistic for both of us? Now imagine a minor conflict from daily life. How could you move the conversation from blame to a clear next step? Use this pattern. I don't want. The main issue is, could we? Now let's explore cultural communication. English is spoken by people with many cultural backgrounds. There is no single personality you must adopt when you speak it. Still, communication styles vary, and awareness can prevent misunderstanding. In some environments, directness shows honesty and efficiency. In others, directness may feel disrespectful. Some people expect disagreement to be stated openly. Others communicate disagreement through hesitation, silence, or indirect language. Imagine a manager asks, "Can you finish this by Friday?" One person says, "No, Friday is impossible. I need until Tuesday." The message is clear, but the tone may sound abrupt in some contexts. Another person says, "Friday might be a little difficult." The sentence sounds polite, but a direct listener may think Friday is still possible. A balanced response is, I won't be able to complete the full report by Friday. I can send the first 2 sections then and deliver the final version on Tuesday. Would that work? Clear fact. Practical alternative. Respectful question. Now consider an invitation. Someone says, you're welcome to join us if you'd like. The meaning may be a genuine invitation without pressure, but depending on tone and context, a learner might wonder whether the person truly wants them to come. If you are uncertain, you can clarify naturally. That sounds lovely. Are you sure it wouldn't be inconvenient? Or, I'd be happy to join if the plan is still open. Now consider feedback. Someone says, that's an interesting approach. We may want to explore a few alternatives before making a decision. The person may be politely expressing serious doubt. Advanced listening requires attention to what happens next. If alternatives must be explored, the proposal has not been accepted. Here are phrases for checking implied meaning. When you say, do you mean? Just so I understand, are you suggesting that, would it be fair to say that it sounds as though you have some concerns? Would you like to discuss them? Repeat. Just so I understand, are you suggesting that we consider a different approach? It sounds as though you have some concerns. Would you like to discuss them? Do not assume that every indirect sentence hides a negative meaning. Tone, relationship, and context matter. When the decision is important, clarification is safer than guessing. Cultural awareness also means recognizing your own style. Answer these questions. Do you usually communicate disagreement directly or indirectly? When someone is very direct with you, do you experience it as helpful? Ruhig? Or both? Do you find it easy to say no? How does your communication change with family, friends, and colleagues? Here is a model reflection. I tend to communicate disagreement indirectly, especially with older people or authority figures. This helps me remain respectful, but sometimes my message is so soft that the other person does not realize I disagree. In professional English, I'm trying to become clearer while keeping a calm tone. Now reflect on your own style. Self-awareness gives you more choices. You do not need to abandon your culture. You can expand your communication range. Now let's discuss identity in English. Many advanced learners say they feel like a quieter or simpler version of themselves when speaking English. This happens because personality needs language. Humor needs timing. Warmth needs expressions. Confidence needs familiar sentence patterns. When those tools are not automatic, part of your personality may remain hidden. The solution is not to invent a false English personality. It is to practice expressing more sides of your real one. Complete these sentences. I'm the kind of person who people sometimes assume that but actually, one value that guides many of my decisions is I feel most like myself when something I'm still learning about myself is, here is a model. I'm the kind of person who needs time to think before making an important decision. People sometimes assume that this means I lack confidence, but actually I prefer to consider the consequences carefully. One value that guides many of my decisions is reliability. If I promise to do something, I want people to know they can depend on me. I feel most like myself when I'm having an honest conversation with someone I trust. Something I'm still learning is how to protect my energy without feeling guilty. This answer reveals personality, values, and growth. Now speak about yourself for 1 minute. Do not describe your job, AGA, or location unless they are important to your identity. Tell us how you think, what you value, and what you are learning That is a deeper form of fluency. Now let's talk about purpose and success. These are large ideas, but they appear often in interviews, friendships, podcasts, and personal reflection. Instead of asking, "What is success?" let's make the question more practical. What would a successful ordinary week look like for you? Perhaps success is not a dramatic achievement. Perhaps it is finishing important work without sacrificing sleep, having dinner with family, exercising twice, making progress on a personal goal, having one evening with no pressure to be productive. Here is a model answer. A successful week for me would feel balanced rather than perfect. I would complete the tasks that genuinely matter, make time for the people I care about, and protect enough energy to enjoy my life outside work. I used to measure success mainly through achievement. Now I also consider the quality of my attention and the state of my health. Notice the contrast between past and present. I used to measure success through. Now I also consider. Complete those sentences for yourself. I used to measure success through. Now I also consider. This helps you talk about how your values have changed. Now answer. What would a successful ordinary week look like for you? Be specific. Advanced English becomes memorable when it describes a life you recognize. We are now ready for a final integrated practice. This will bring together opinion, listening, emotion, problem solving, professional language, and reflection. Imagine the following situation. You work for a growing company. For the past year, your team has been allowed to work from home 3 days a week. Most employees value the flexibility, and some say they are more productive. However, the company director believes communication has become weaker. She proposes that everyone return to the office 5 days a week beginning next month. The proposal creates strong reactions. Some employees are angry. Others admit that teamwork has become more difficult. Your manager organizes a meeting and asks everyone to suggest a balanced solution. First, identify the issue. The company wants stronger communication. Employees want to keep flexibility. Now identify the danger of a simple answer. If you say, "Remote work is better," you ignore the communication problem. If you say, "Everyone should return," you ignore the benefits people have experienced. A nuanced response might begin, "I understand why the company is concerned about communication. Some decisions take longer online, and newer employees may find it difficult to build relationships. At the same time, returning 5 days a week would remove flexibility that has improved many people's concentration and work-life balance." Now offer a proposal. Rather than choosing between fully remote and fully office-based work, we could introduce 2 shared office days each week. Teams would use those days for collaboration, training, and important discussions. Employees could use the remaining days for focused work. Recognize a concern. One possible concern is that people may schedule online meetings on remote days and still struggle to protect focus time. Offer a response. We could address that by creating clear meeting guidelines and reviewing the arrangement after 8 weeks. Complete response. I understand why the company is concerned about communication. Some decisions take longer online, and newer employees may find it difficult to build relationships. At the same time, returning 5 days a week would remove flexibility that has improved many people's concentration and work-life balance. Rather than choosing between 2 extremes, we could introduce 2 shared office days each week. Teams would use those days for collaboration, training, and important discussions, while the remaining days could support focused work. One possible concern is that online meetings may continue to interrupt remote days. We could address that with clear meeting guidelines and review the arrangement after 8 weeks. Now respond in your own words. You may support a different solution. What matters is your reasoning. Begin, I understand why. At the same time, rather than, one possible solution would be, one concern is, we could address that by, speak for 1 or 2 minutes. Now imagine a colleague responds, I don't think 2 office days are enough. We tried that before. And communication was still poor. Do not become defensive. You could say, that's useful context. Do you think the problem was the number of office days or the way teams use them? If people came to the office but spent the entire day in separate online meetings, adding more days may not solve the underlying issue. This response asks for evidence and identifies a deeper factor. The colleague says, that may be part of it. We never agreed on what office days were for. You respond, then perhaps the first step is to define the purpose more clearly. We could test 2 structured collaboration days before deciding whether more are necessary. The conversation moved from positions to investigation. Now summarize the discussion. The company is concerned about weaker communication. While employees value the benefits of remote work, a possible compromise is to introduce 2 structured office days, establish clear meeting guidelines, and review the results after 8 weeks. Excellent. Now reflect on the emotional side. Why might employees react strongly to the proposal? They may feel that the company does not trust them. They may have organized family care, travel, or living arrangements around remote work. The change may represent more than location. It may represent a loss of control. Why might the director feel concerned? She may be responsible for results and believe that problems are increasing. She may also have less direct contact with employees' daily work, which creates uncertainty. Understanding emotion does not automatically decide the policy. It helps people discuss the policy more intelligently. Now create an empathetic sentence for each side. To employees, I understand that this proposal affects routines and responsibilities people have built over the past year. To the director, I understand that maintaining communication and consistent results is a serious responsibility. Both statements can be true. This final situation shows what advanced language is for. It allows you to hold complexity, protect relationships, and still move toward a decision. Now let's create a practical plan. So this lesson changes more than your mood for 1 day. I recommend a 7-day advanced speaking cycle. Each day takes 15 to 20 minutes. On day 1, practice structured opinions. Choose one question that matters to you. Use this pattern. My view is, the main reason is, at the same time, for example. So overall, record a 1-minute answer. Listen once. Do not criticize your accent. Ask only. Was my idea clear? On day 2, practice emotional precision. Describe one event from your day. Avoid happy, sad, bad, and good. Choose a more precise emotion and explain what created it. I felt frustrated because I felt relieved when I felt conflicted about. I felt fulfilled by. On day 3, practice active listening. Listen to a 2-minute story or interview. Pause and summarize what the speaker experienced and how the speaker seemed to feel. The speaker is dealing with. It sounds as though the main emotion is. The deeper issue may be. On day 4, practice professional clarity. Give a short update about a real project. What is complete? What is in progress? What is difficult? What is the next step? On day 5, Practice storytelling. Tell a 2-minute story with situation, tension, turning point, result, and reflection. Add 2 specific details that someone could see or hear on day 6. Practice paraphrasing. Choose 5 useful sentences from this lesson. Express each idea in a different way. Then explain 3 words without using the words themselves. On day 7, repeat your recording from day 1. Answer the same question again without listening to the original recording first. Then compare the 2 versions. Look for one improvement in structure, vocabulary, confidence, or detail. Do not search only for mistakes. Evidence of progress matters. Let's build your plan now. Which day will be easiest for you? Which day will challenge you most? When will you practice? Complete this sentence. For the next 7 days, I will practice for 15 minutes maybe after breakfast, during lunch, after work, or before bed. Now complete. The skill I most want to improve is because. Say your answer aloud. There is one more habit I want you to develop. Collect language by purpose, not only by topic. Instead of one list called advanced vocabulary, create smaller groups. Phrases for disagreeing politely. Phrases for asking for time. Phrases for emotional support. Phrases for clarifying. Phrases for storytelling. Phrases for setting boundaries. Phrases for giving an update. When you organize language by purpose, you remember when to use it. For example, your clarification group might include, let me explain what I mean. I may not have expressed that clearly. I'm saying, just so I understand, how do you mean? Let me rephrase that. Your support group might include, that sounds like a lot to carry. I can understand why that affected you. Would it help to talk it through? Do you want advice? Or do you need me to listen? You do not have to solve everything today. Review 5 phrases. Then imagine one situation for each phrase. This creates a mental connection between language and life. Now let's review the central ideas from our time together. Advanced English is not complicated language. It is clear language that can carry complex meaning. Nuance allows 2 truths to exist at the same time. Strong disagreement recognizes the other idea, names a concern, explains the impact, and offers an alternative. Active listening reflects facts, recognizes emotion, and invites the person to continue. Emotional precision helps you describe what is really happening inside you. Boundaries can be kind, clear, and practical. Stories become engaging when they contain tension, a turning point, and reflection. Professional English focuses on relevant information and next steps. Natural conversation includes pauses, repair, curiosity, and follow-up questions. Paraphrasing keeps communication moving when the exact word is unavailable. Persuasion works best when it respects concerns and explains practical benefits. Cultural awareness gives you more ways to interpret and express meaning. Resilience is not always continuing with the same plan. Sometimes it is adjusting the plan to reality. And your English personality grows each time you practice expressing a real part of yourself. Now I want you to return to the sentence you completed at the beginning. By the end of this lesson, I want to feel more confident when I think about your answer. Do you feel even slightly more prepared now? Perhaps you do not remember every phrase. That is not the test. Can you organize an opinion more clearly? Can you disagree without becoming aggressive or silent? Can you ask a better follow-up question? Can you name a feeling more precisely? Can you clarify when someone misunderstands you? Can you tell a story with a point? Can you say no respectfully? If one of those abilities feels stronger, this lesson has already created value. Before we finish, I want to share one final thought. There is a stage in language learning when progress becomes difficult to see. At the beginning, every new word feels like growth. Later, you already know thousands of words, and improvement becomes quieter. It appears in the extra second you remain calm during a conversation. It appears when you choose a more accurate emotion. It appears when you understand a joke without translating it. It appears when someone disagrees, and you can still explain your view. It appears when your voice begins to sound like you. Do not mistake quiet progress for no progress. You are not only learning English, you are building access to more of your own mind. Each time you express an honest idea, you make that access stronger. Each time you tell a story, ask a thoughtful question, or repair a misunderstanding, English becomes less like a subject and more like a part of your life. That process takes time, but it is happening. If you stayed with me through this long lesson, I want you to recognize what that says about you. You are willing to concentrate. You are willing to reflect. You are willing to practice ideas that cannot be mastered in 5 minutes. Be proud of that patience. Now choose one sentence from today that you want to carry into the next week. Maybe, I'm not saying the idea is wrong. I'm saying we need to test it. Maybe, I understand enough to respond. Maybe, I don't have the capacity to take on anything else this week. Maybe, the turning point came when I changed the question. Maybe, two things can be true at the same time. Or perhaps, resilience is using the energy I have on the choices that remain. Say your sentence aloud one final time. Let it belong to you. Thank you for sharing this time with me here on Miss Nung. If this lesson helped you think more deeply and speak more confidently, subscribe to the channel and return to practice again. In the comments, complete this sentence. The part of my English I most want to strengthen is. Your answer will turn a general wish into a clear direction. And it may encourage another learner who feels the same way. Remember, you do not need to become a different person to speak advanced English. You need enough language to reveal more of the person you already are. Keep listening with curiosity. Keep speaking with courage. Keep choosing clarity over perfection. I'm Nung. And this is Miss Nung. Take care of yourself. Keep English close. And I'll see you in our next lesson. Goodbye for now.